speak.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. Can you hear me just fine? This is voice coming through. I've got a new microphone set up here, so I'm not exactly sure when it's working and when it's not. Thank you, Steve. Thanks, Jason. So we're here to talk about partnering with decision makers, and the idea of partnering is to build our skills at influencing folks who can help us make the kind of changes we want to make. So this material, the ideas that we're going to be talking about, they're applicable to internal folks who need to talk to folks higher in the organization or who want to see if they can't stimulate some action in that way. It's also applicable for external folks who need to talk to, potential clients or folks like that. So, or, other people in their professional community that they need to influence for changes there. So, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. As we go through, I'm going to use what I know best, which is the Agile Fluency Model, as a kind of an object around which we'll use examples and things like that for, what kind of change might we want to be talking to decision makers about. But you can translate it in your own head to whatever kind of changes you think are going to be important or you want to discover is on the minds of decision makers. Really what we want to do is align with the direction that the decision makers want to go, but help them do that in a healthy way, and not just a knee-jerk, let's buy this package kind of way. So, so we're going to use a couple of tools. I'm going to be using this PowerPoint slides as we go along to help guide the talk. And we are also going to be using Mentimeter. So Mentimeter is a tool that we can use to do polling and get questions answered, find out what's going on your minds as we go through this. So it adds a little bit of extra interactivity. There will be opportunities for questions. We have some Mentimeter slides where you'll be able to put in your questions. As you go along, please feel free to put questions or comments in the chat. I won't be able to see them because I'm focused on all this other stuff that's going on. But if you have a question, you want to remember it for when the Mentimeter question slide comes up, go ahead and put it in the chat as a placeholder, and then you can copy it out and put it on the slides later, or just keep it for yourselves. We'll keep track of all the questions. We're going to have 3 opportunities to ask questions as we go through this, 1 at the end and 2 sort of partway through in 2 places. But those partway through question and answers are we're going to have to keep those short just to make sure that we have enough time to cover everything by the end of the hour. So let's get going. So if you can pop over to mentimeter.com. I'm going to stop my share here and start my share there. Yeah, who feels comfortable, completely at ease when talking to leaders and decision makers? Anybody who has budget to make things happen, anybody who has the kind of social clout or title clout in an organization to make things happen. We're talking about those kind of folks. So, there's kind of a continuum of how we feel about having those conversations. Early in my career, I shared an office with a sales trainer. And for a while, because I was having so much trouble, I could talk to peers just fine, but when it started being people higher in the organization, I would get kind of anxious and nervous. And so she had me wear a rubber band around my wrist, and I was supposed to snap it at myself every day, sort of operant conditioning to stop doing that, right? Because it's so common to have trouble talking to people who are kind of outside our spheres, outside our daily. So I'm gonna move forward with this. So it looks like most of you feel at least somewhat comfortable having those conversations. What we're going to do today is try to find some ways to ease that. But in the meantime, I would like some input from you. Oops, I need to be over here. Oh, I need to be over here. Where am I? Okay, here we go. On the next question, which is, what kind of factors can increase your comfort and ease? And yeah, what do you think would help you? Just type your answers in there. Yeah, if you've already got a relationship with the person, absolutely. What else? Yeah, you have data that's meaningful to them. If you know that you're in alignment with their interests. Yeah. Yeah. If you understand their expectations, yeah, for the conversation, if there's trust, if you feel psychologically safe with them, that you can bring up hard ideas, hard questions. Talking in person, yeah, being face to face with them. All right, so now that we've explored that, how about what increases your hesitation or your reluctance? What do you think is kind of hindering you, getting in the way of having those conversations? I mean, most people said somewhat. So there are some times when you're not feeling totally comfortable in that. So what is the what do you think gets in the way of that? Ah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, some of the opposite of what you said before, but some of these other things are a little bit different. Yeah, no agenda, lots at stake. What happens if it all goes sideways on us? Yeah, going against the norm, the conventional wisdom. One of the things that we know, those of us who are change agents, is we know that conventional wisdom often steers us down the wrong path. We need to think about new things in new times, and that's not conventional, right? So we're looking at how we can do that. All right. So that's some good information for kind of where we're starting from, right? So I'm going to go back over to my other slides. So a little bit of idea. Well, as I said, while we're doing this, I'm going to use kind of the transition to Agile. What we're thinking about talking to this decision maker, what they've gotten in touch with us about is they've read an airplane magazine, or they talked to a colleague, or they've observed some things in other organizations, and they said, I think we need to be more agile, or we've tried Agile before and it didn't work, but darn it, we need the kind of benefits that Agile gives. And so let's give it a try again. And so they've gotten in touch with you and they want to talk to you about that. And so I'm going to use that as an example of the kind of conversations we might want to have with decision makers. You can, as I said earlier, you could translate into your own situation. What is the thing you're trying to create a partnership with, and so on. But we're going to be doing this, and because it's the thing I know best, Agile Fluency Project was formed, and the Agile Fluency Model was created because James Shore and I really wanted we just were tired of hearing about all the ways that Agile had failed and all this snarky, fragile Agile kind of comments and dark Scrum kind of comments that were out there. We wanted Agile done well. In every organization that says, you know, we're doing Agile, we wanted them to really get the benefits that they could get from teams who really knew how to provide that. And so that's why we created the Agile Fluency Model. That's why we created the project and everything else. So we'll be talking about that as we go along. So just to get started, diving right into this idea of partnering with decision makers. We have this thing we call the Agile Fluency Improvement Cycle that helps guide us through this partnership. Where we go, it's a path through the partnership that, as you're getting a hint of here, it's not linear. There's a lot of feedback loops that we'll be examining as we go along to keep the relationship alive and keep the relationship going. So, but in the first part of this, when we initiate, we're really looking to initiate this partnership, what we want to do is discover opportunities. And it's not our professional opportunities. It's the opportunities for this decision maker that we're talking to. And well, there's also a little bit here too, is you want to make sure you actually are talking to a decision maker that can make a difference. Very often, decision makers are very busy people. Certainly the higher up in the organization they're busier than area, and they may have more and more gatekeepers, or they may have assigned somebody. They may have said, hey, go off and find me some folks who could help with this kind of transition that we're looking at, whether it's an Agile transition or any other kind. And those might be the first people who get in touch with you. You want to ensure that you are talking to the person who can really make a difference. If it means expenditure of money, you need to be talking to somebody who has a budget around that. So you may have to partner with the gatekeeper first, and then go with them to talk to the decision maker. You never want to send them to talk on your behalf, but you want to go with them to talk to the decision maker. And then when we have that person's attention, we want to discover what opportunity did they have in mind? What did they see? What possibilities did they see in this potential transition or potential change that they're after? And understand that we want to be seriously, sincerely, intensely curious about their point of view, their experience, their context, all the things that they are trying to understand. And so that's the frame the opportunity conversation that we're going to talk about in a minute. We really want to get to know from their perspective what's going on in their organization, what is it that they need and they aren't getting now, all those kinds of things. And then after we've had some series, like here it says minutes or days, after we've had a series of those kinds of conversations and we feel like we've got a handle on it, then we might say, okay, well, let's start talking about potential ways to go. And that's when they would choose, well, what is our target? Which of these possible paths do we want to take? And with the Agile Fluency Model, it might be, which teams do we have that we want in certain zones of fluency? In other instances, you might be looking for different kinds of targets. But that's the first part of the improvement cycle, is establishing that I'm not here for my ends. I'm here for your ends. And I'm going to give you the best advice, the best counsel, the best partnering, the best working relationship I can, so that you can get what you need. And that's the message that we're trying to create here. So here's another one. It all starts with a conversation about benefits and outcomes. So let's go back to Mentimeter and look at the next question. What decision maker might you be talking to? Would you be talking to someone in the C-suite? Who do you typically talk to that you're trying to partner with? Is it a vice president of in tech, or product engineering, or finance and HR, or marketing and sales? Maybe it's not quite a senior level executive, but it's a functional area manager, leader, or somebody else. Let's see. So a lot of people talking to fairly senior folks, maybe primarily maybe technical folks, but also then functional area managers. Those can be tough nuts to crack. That's for sure. All right. All right. So let's leave that. Back over here. Did I share my screen on that one? Whoops. Oh. Let's go back. See, this is my technical issues here. I did not share that screen with you. Let me get it so that you can see. Can you see all the, give me a little thumbs up if you can see the outcomes there. All right. So it's kind of a broad spread. Most folks seem to be able to find themselves in a conversation with one of these kinds of folks. So let's explore what we might do in that conversation. So I have several conversation starters. I tend to use them kind of in this order. So when you're considering a shift to, in our case, our example case, it's going to be Agile, but it might be a shift to finance through blockchain. I don't know what it might be, but as you're considering this new thing, you know, what would you intend to happen differently? Why would you want to be doing this? I mean, we all know that any kind of shift in an organization is going to take up a lot of resources. And by that, I mean money, time, attention. You know, why would we want to embark on something like that? What would need to be happening differently that would make that worth our while, right? So we have a conversation around that for a while. And then if your teams, your organization, your leaders achieve those differences, your departments, how would you tell? So this is a question about sort of getting a sense of, are we moving towards success or are we not moving towards success? It's a kind of an intangible measure, right? What would you see, hear, experience that you don't see, hear, experience today? Right. And somewhere in here, I generally ask another question, which is, are any of those things that you'd like to have happen differently broadly across your organization already happening anywhere in your organization? Do you know of them? Have you seen it, heard it, experienced it in maybe a small pocket of your organization? And that's giving you the sense that you want to move on. So you can take these questions and kind of riff on them and add in what you need to know to satisfy your curiosity about their point of view, their opportunities, the things that they are looking for. So then after we kind of, you know, after they say, well, our teams need to communicate better, which is the thing I sometimes hear. I try to get that kind of pulled apart a little bit more, but, and then if they were communicating better, what would you see, hear, experience? Then when you saw those things, when you heard or experienced those things, what do you think the impact on your ROI or your bottom line or other things that you value in your organization? What would that be? And could you qualify it in financial terms? Because this person, what we're doing is trying to help this person. If we're not talking to the CFO, odds are the person we're talking to is going to go and need to have some conversation with their finance people about why it's a good idea to go down this path, right? So we're preparing the ground. We're getting them ready to be able to have those conversations for themselves with other folks. What would be the financial impact of doing that? I mean, you know, people will pick up a penny off the ground because it doesn't take very much effort. But will they, you know, will they walk down the block 3-way to pick up a penny? Probably not. That's more investment than I want to make to get a penny, right? Well, every organization has those calculations going on. And so we want to be able to start talking to them about how can they quantify in financial terms some of these ways that the things they want to see would help their organization. So reduction in staff, reduction in turnover, increases in performance, whatever that might be. And maybe greater revenue is one thing that's always pretty compelling, or cutting costs can be pretty compelling. Anything that leaves more money in the coffers. So we're looking for those kinds of answers. And then after you've gotten that information together, then we begin to talk about, okay, who else do you need to involve in this? Who are your key stakeholders in this transition you want to make? Because we want to understand their context. We want to understand where they're coming from. And so we ask them about their own key stakeholders. Right? And I'm just going to make sure I'm following my notes. Yeah, well, and things like which among them are supporting, you think will be supportive of this effort? Which among them are going to hang back? Which won't care one way or the other? Who do you need, who's already on board, but maybe so enthusiastic that they're getting in your way? Maybe you want to dial them back a little bit. So you just want to know what's going on with all the stakeholders that they might be working with. What we know for sure, what I know for sure in my bones, is one size doesn't fit all. And at this point in the conversation, I really want to communicate to this decision maker that I'm talking to that I want to find the right solution for them. And it may not come in a package. It may be a variety of things we need to look at. As a person who my entire life, and there may be others on this call, has been larger than model size, fashion model size, I know for sure one size never fits all. And that's what we need to know. Everything needs to be tailored. Everything needs to be adjusted in order that it really fits well, shows up off our best qualities and so on. And we want that for their organization too. We want them to have a path toward their goals that fits for them, that is moving them toward getting the benefits that they need. And that's a part of our, our sincere, intense curiosity about how we can have the best relationship with them that we can. So let's move to questions. We'll just take 4 or 5 questions, and then so we can kind of move on. I'm going to pop back over to Mentimeter. And let's see a few questions so far. You can put your questions in Mentimeter. It's a way easier for me to read than having them in the chat. So.
I submitted the one from the chat into Mentimeter.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Right, right. Well, so I don't go in trying to justify anything to begin with. That's the one thing in this question. Quite often, the higher I go in an organization, the less leaders understand or promote Agile as a framework. Absolutely. The next thing is, how would you justify the investment in another Scrum Master or a manual tester when the benefits are hard to quantify in tangible ways, terms? So I would never go and have these conversations with them about justifying an investment in another Scrum Master. Remember, what we're doing is we're trying to get aligned with their goals. And so we first need to very much understand where they see the opportunity here. And once we understand that, we may be able to see and talk to them in their own terms about how another Scrum Master or more Scrum Masters across more teams might be beneficial to them. But that's down the path a little bit. The first thing is to get into that partnership so that you become a trusted advisor. You become a trusted partner in the efforts to make things better in the organization.
Diana, can you put the code up again? Because mine timed out. So I thought maybe some others might have too.
Oh, okay.
I'll repost it.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I forgot it's also in the chat. I was using the QR.
Yeah, and you can also just go to menti.com and use the numbers, the code numbers there. Okay, so let's keep moving. I'm going to keep going through this pretty fast because if you want to dive deeper, you will have the opportunity to do that if you want to attend the workshop. So we're going to, in the workshop, we'll go deeper in all of these things so you can get a lot more questions answered there. So now let's talk about Agile. You know, how do we, if Agile is our goal, how do we justify or frame that investment? So the first thing I talk about is fluency, the need for teams who can fluently produce and perform, that have all the skills and proficiencies they need to do that. And so I will talk to them a little bit about what fluency is, it's why we named ourselves the Agile Fluency Model as opposed to something else, is this idea that performance that persists, and that it's how we always work. It's our normal, natural, automatic way of working together because it increases everyone's performance and productivity. And I will let them know that that comes from an investment in learning and then an investment in practice. So that's what we're looking for. And but we need to know maybe where their teams are now. So we're going to be talking to decision makers about the benefits of teams that have fluent Agile skills. So now, see, we understand some of the benefits that they are looking for. Right? We've gotten that. We've figured, we've really talked to them deeply about that. We're in that relationship. And now we can talk to them about some paths. One path to getting what you want is that you enable your teams in new and different ways to produce more benefit for your business. So, we look at this is a simple form of the Agile Fluency Model. We think there are several kinds of teams that are perfectly consistent with being Agile. There's no one true way to Agile, and it's not necessarily about methodologies. It's about business benefits. What kinds of benefits does the organization need from various of their teams? They may need different benefits from different teams. So we want to figure that out. And then within those, we can also look at some of the other models like team topologies and things about what kinds of teams are those once we know what the benefits are. So, so we look at these 4 zones. We mostly, in conversation with folks, we mostly look at the focusing, delivering, and optimizing zone. And I'll explain more about that in a moment. So we have those conversations, and a quick way of having those conversations is, well, here's one way to tell where your teams are now. Can you go into your team once a month and the team can show you what it's working on and what progress it's made, and they do that in a way that's understandable to you as a business person? Do you get that already? No? Well, maybe you need a focusing zone team. But, those are basic skills in the Agile world. Those are the most fundamental parts. And for some organizations, that's all they need, but it's not what every organization needs. So you might need a delivering zone team. So can you see, do your teams release their latest work at, really reasonable cost and risk whenever the customer wants or whenever the business desires it? Are you seeing that in your teams? Oh, well, no. Well, then you may have focusing zone teams, but you don't have delivering zone teams yet. And then another question is, can the team describe to you when you go visit them where their product stands in the market and how they're improved or secure their position? Do you need teams that do that? And do you have them already? And if you don't, do you have delivering teams? Do you have focusing teams? What would you like? What benefits do you seek from your teams? This is a little bit bigger form of that chart. I often will bring this with me when I talk to teams. So we'll talk through this more in the workshop. But you'll notice every zone has that core metric and then some others kind of supporting observable behaviors that you can, if you visit a team or you interact with a team, you can actually see these things going on. And so you can tell, are they proficient? Are they fluent in this zone? Or is this an area that might need some care? Is this an area that might need some support and benefit? So to go a little bit deeper, along with getting those benefits come a need to make some investments. So I will often share, here are the kinds of investments that we might find useful, depending on the kinds of teams that you're looking for. And the other part of this model is it's a progressive model. So delivering has a whole set of things it needs, but it also needs everything from the focusing zone and so on. So, but in focusing zone, we want to make sure that teams can do the work they need to do. So there aren't things getting in the way, aren't blockers. People are 100% allocated to teams and to products. We're not looking at splitting people across because that really gets in the way of productivity. It may be counterintuitive, but there's all kinds of evidence for that. We want to keep teams together. We want to provide business representation to those teams so that there's a communication channel between the business and the team and so on. Or if we're talking about delivering zone, if that's the thing they've expressed interest in, then we'll talk about these kinds of investments. They're going to need to upgrade their engineering skills. And, anytime a group of people or even an individual goes on a learning journey, the first thing that happens is a slowdown before there's a speed up. But the speed up does come if you invest in the learning. So you have to be patient through that potentially lowered productivity. You may need some coaches, for particularly technical coaches for the delivery zone and so on. In optimizing, we don't have usually as many teams that need to be optimizing teams, although this is kind of the classic description of an Agile team. But we need to make sure that every team has a dedicated business expert, probably as part of the team, salesperson, marketing person, product development person, but somebody who understands this product well and that's how it's going to be used and can help the team get up to speed on that information, and so on. We want to dedicate these teams. So, and this is a bigger version of that, what I just showed you all on one slide. And I'll be happy to send you one of these, and we can, I'll show you later how to get it for yourself. but it encompasses all of this. So this is another thing I might bring with me on my conversation with decision makers. Now, if you're after something other than more agile in your organization, there may be some other things you want to look to bring to be sort of what you want to do is set up a situation where you're sitting shoulder to shoulder with the decision maker over here, and you're looking at something out here together and examining the problem that's out here, but you're doing it together, right? There's a lot of power in that kind of stance. And so we want to create that for ourselves. So focusing, delivering, optimizing, strengthening. At this point, you're going to want to begin, for them to begin to be able to tell you, well, we've got these IT teams and they're mostly focused on doing internal customer support, building tools for our help desk. And or building websites for our marketing department. Maybe they need to be focusing some teams, but we've got these other teams that are focused on our flagship product that's been out there for a while that we just keep needing to upgrade. Those might need to be your delivering zone teams. And optimizing, maybe that's your research and development teams. So it's not like any organization, unless it's very small, has only teams in one zone. And so that's why we're talking about this more nuanced approach. So I'm going to stop again a minute here. And if you would like to ask some questions, grab the link or go to menti.com and use the voting code or the QR. Let's go over here and see what the new questions are. I'll give you a minute to put those in. And I know we're going through this really fast, but I wanted to give you a chance to sort of see all these pieces and parts and how they fit together in creating that partnership with decision makers. And yeah. And Anna has graciously provided you in July with an opportunity to go deeper into all of these.
Diana, I'll ask a question if it's okay, because it's quicker for me to do it verbally.
Yeah.
And I see this pretty often. So let's say the key, like C-level has went and invested with XIZ framework.
Right.
Everybody is saying it's not working. How do you approach them in the conversation after they've made such a huge investment? Because once that investment's been made, they don't want to claim that they're doing it incorrectly.
Right.
And I see it all the time. That's probably the biggest one I see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's been a few things in my experience that have helped with that. Time helps. I wouldn't just rush right in when I first started hearing that, because I've seen a number of organizations that had to take 2, 3, or 4 runs at creating an agile transition before it really stuck in the organization, before everybody figured out, oh, they're really serious about this, right? So what I would do is I would start creating that sincere, intense curiosity conversation with them. So what opportunities did, what were the opportunities they thought they would get by going the way they went? And just have that conversation. What did you expect was going to happen? What were you hoping for? Right? If you'd gotten that, how would it be different from what you've gotten now? Right? We kind of recast those 3 sets of questions. Are you getting the return on the investment that you made, that you hoped you would get? And that doesn't have to be ROI. It could be reduced turnover or whatever else is of value to you. I'd really like to know and understand, because if you'd like, I would like to partner with you to make sure that you are being able to grab a hold of those opportunities you were thinking you could have, getting the benefits you really wanted, right? That's the relationship we're trying to create. And it may not be in the first instance I mean, I have to let go of the idea that I'm going to be selling them anything. This is just somebody that I think I would really like to work with this person. I heard good things about their organization. I've gotten this opportunity to, sit with them. Maybe we're at a conference or something, having lunch together, and, I can have those conversations. So that's, you have to be gentle. Nobody wants to say, I really screwed up. And in the C-suite, even more than in our Agile teams, psychological safety is a scarce commodity for those folks. It's a very scarce commodity for them. And so we want to make sure that we are making a space where they can feel safe at talking about that. Maybe they have a mentor, maybe they have an executive coach that and you can kind of ask for an introduction that way. However you stumble into it, I think that's the way to go, because what I have seen is organizations taking 2 and 3 and 4 runs at it. They rarely just take one run at it, say, that's it, didn't work, we're done, we're going back to the bad old way and staying there till we die like dinosaurs. Very few executives are doing that. They still want to understand, and they understand sunk costs, and they understand, that maybe the budget for this transition isn't as big as it was, and now maybe we need a different kind of solution because we don't have as much money to throw around right now because we invested in this other thing. So the other thing I would really recommend is Esther Derby's book, Seven Rules for Positive Productive Change, where she talks about very small steps toward change. And that's what you need when you're talking with folks like who you mentioned, Anna.
I have a follow-up question, if that's okay, based
Sure.
on, I've worked with a lot of organizations that kind of do Agile in name only.
Yeah.
They make superficial changes by, they'll have a Kanban board, they'll have stand-ups, but they're not really embracing, releases. They're not building self-sufficient teams because of difficulties and having to reassign staff and do stuff like that. So they don't see the benefits. And you say you see organizations that do it a number of times and don't succeed. If you go into a situation like this where they just haven't done it right, how do you have that conversation of it's not the processes problem, you're just not doing it right, and convince them to make a hard change?
Well, so here you used the magic word there, convince. I am well known in some areas of the Agile world as saying, I am not in the convincing business. I'm in the I'll share information I have business. I'll tell you stories from my experience business. I am not here to convince you. And that's what you have to move away from. You cannot go into the conversation saying, you know what, I've noticed you're doing it wrong. The minute anything that hints of that comes out of your mouth, you've lost your audience, no matter what you're trying to do, right? Unless you're their grandpa or something, maybe, but for the most part, that's not a great way to start a conversation. But what were you hoping to, what were you hoping to see come out of this, the way you've approached this Agile transition that you've done so far? Are you getting the benefits you hoped you would get? Do you think you're leaving any benefits on the table? Or what do you think have been some of the impediments that have gotten in the way of you getting? I'd love to explore that with you, right? So now again, we're shoulder to shoulder. It's us against the fact that they're not getting the benefits from their Agile transition that they hoped they would get. It's not me against them. You're doing it wrong, and I'm going to tell you how to do it right. And that's the key. That's the main key to that.
Diana,
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
One really quick. I know you got another one.
Okay. Yeah, we got to keep moving here.
At what point do you have to become more transparent and maybe have more tough love, because there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, right. Well, yes and no. Joshua Karansky just did a tweet the other day, although I know we're all leaving Twitter now, but he did a tweet about when do you need command and control as a coach or consultant or as a leader, right? And he's like, in emergencies, when it's life and death. So until we're there, no, unless they come to me, and I've had this happen, and they've said, we've tried all these things, it's just not happening. What do I do? And that question is an indicator that we have built a trusting relationship, that they know I'm not here to, the idiom that comes to mind is probably not the right one, to do them, to do them in. I'm not here to succeed at their expense. Never, never, never. If I find myself in that relationship, I fire that client and I leave. Because I have to sincerely want their best interests, the best interest for their organization, the best interest for them, the best interest for everybody who works there. I'm the one who did the Agile 2014 keynote talk about how everybody can have the best job ever, right? That's what I want. I want everybody saying, I have the best job ever. I love this work. I can't wait to get to work on Monday, from the C-suite on down. So I'm always looking for ways that I can make that happen. And so I have to look for openings where somebody is willing enough to talk to me truthfully, honestly, transparently, before I can say, I really think you need to do this. If you don't do this, you're going to be on a path that you can't come back from, right? But it's, there are times when you can have that conversation, but those are conversations you have with people who are your dear, most intimate friends that you really trust. If it's a personal kind of thing, if it's a business thing, you have to have that trusting working relationship. So that's why this whole talk is called Partnering with Decision Makers. You've got to get yourself into that partnership mode where you really are feeling shoulder to shoulder in their best interests and the best interests of the people they serve. And then go. I'm going to digress here for a second, even though I'm going to use up some time. I had a coaching client one time who was a CTO in an organization. And we'd been working together for a while because the teams in the organization were undergoing some intense XP, extreme programming training, and a shift from the way they had been working to that. And we knew that the managers needed to have attention, if not in advance, at least at the same time. But what I learned was that this guy, was a man, was still kind of conflicted about wanting to have his hands in the code. It wasn't a huge organization, and it hadn't been that long since he was an engineer. And, he still kind of wanted to have his hands in the code, but he also liked having this big view of things that he got from being in the C-suite. And so we talked a lot about how he was going to have to make some choices about what he really couldn't sustain. The organization was getting too big for him to sustain both of those. And so one day I get a phone call from him, and he said, the team is in, I can hear the team, one of the teams in the other room having this conversation about a coding problem. And I really know the solution, and I really want to just go in there and tell it to him. And I said, yeah. He said, I shouldn't do that, should I? And I said, no. You've got it. You're on the right path, right? They'll figure it out, right? And so, but I had that relationship with him where he could call and have a conversation like that with me, kind of exposing what he knew was the wrong thing to do and how much he wanted to do that. So anyway, let's keep going. All right. So And we're going to move through the improvement cycle. So now we've understood, where they see the opportunities, what kind of value they think they could produce out of making a change like this. We've begun to coalesce and around a certain path that we're going to take. We've done some other assessments in the rest of the organization of one kind or another. I mean, I do an Agile Fluency diagnostic, other people do other things. That's the understand the system. We may have gone out and interviewed some other people, some of the stakeholders that this decision maker has said, you need to talk to these people. So all that understand the system. Now we're ready to think about what investment should we make? How can we move this forward? And I encourage decision makers to make investment plans for the next 3 months, but on a rolling basis. So we're doing the next 3 months. So April, May, June, and then in May, we're doing June, July, August, and then in July, we're doing August, September, November. So we're kind of doing this rolling investment planning and watching as experiments, because we're hypothesizing that the investments that we make are going to make a difference. And so we're looking at, what kind of difference is this making? What kind of reports are we getting back, and so on. So we have to figure out what those investments are. And so this is the point where I'm asking the decision maker, do you have the will to invest more in cultivating the teams you need to succeed? Teams are the delivery mechanism of value to your customer. There's no CXO that is delivering value to a customer. There's no HR manager who is delivering value directly to, they're all enablers. So can we cultivate the teams we need to get the benefits we want? And if they say yes, great, we could create an investment plan. If they say, no, I don't know if we can do all the, okay, it's like, okay, well then let's begin to make trade-offs. Let's manage our expectations about what our success might look like, and so on. So what did lead, and part of that is we have to, like I said, we have to be preparing the leaders along with preparing the teams. So what do they need if they want to enable and cultivate teams that produce business? We know what we can figure out how to invest in the teams. We've got good coaches all around we can talk to. We've got all those folks are available. We can take care of the teams, but what do the leaders need to be the kind of people who will enable the teams? So we need them to make some shifts. And this is material that's out of the new book that Tricia Broderick and I just have written. They need to be thinking in terms of team motivators. And so we're going to be talking about that. They need to invest in mutual trust all around the place, be able to shift thinking from individual contributors to teams. They think of teams as an entity, a production unit. What do we need to do to take care of this? We definitely do care and maintenance on our cars because it's a transportation unit for us, right? What are we doing for our teams? We need to learn that the people closest to the work know most about the work. And rather than making assumptions, we need to start asking the teams what's going on, and then promoting what we call the team resilience factors. Those resilient learning teams there, collaboration, ability to deal with conflict, inclusion, how to handle power dynamics. Those kinds of things are super important. And we need the leaders to lead the way on those. And then they need to examine their own behaviors. Are they showing themselves as learners? So that the teams know that learning is valued around here and staying ahead of the game is valued around. Have they let go of blame and shame as a leadership or management tool? Can they think in terms of systems? And do they take that systems view? Do they choose effectiveness over efficiency, and so on? So, and then as we go along, we make some investments, 3 months, we check that out, the team goes away, incorporates those investments, does the things they need to do, does their own internal team experiments, and then we evaluate, how's it going? And that loops back around to, okay, what's our next investment plan? And we keep that going. And it's all about these constant feedback loops. And that's what keeps our partnership with the decision maker alive, is we're continually feeding this information back. So a little something about the Agile Fluency Project. We train people to use our materials. James, there's a free downloadable ebook on our website that talks more about the model. Jim Shore, in his second edition of his book, goes even more deeply into what you need to look at the zones and how to implement those zones with your teams. So that's great coaching information. And then presumably by the end of September, we're going to have the book out, Lead Without Blame, and it is available for pre-order now. So these are the parts of what we call the Agile Fluency Suite. We didn't talk about the diagnostic today, but I think that's wasn't as important in the conversation that we were having. You can get a copy of this PDF if you go to agilefluency.org/contact/PHP. All you have to do is say, I was at Diana's meetup talk. I'd really like to get a copy of that PDF graphic, and we'll send it right out to you. Now, final round of questions. Who has more questions?
And I know that we are at the end of the 1 o'clock hour, but
Yeah.
Diana, if you're okay with staying around,
I can stick around for another 5 or 10 minutes or so.
anyone else?
And everybody, I put a link to Diana's workshop and a promo code as well for a discount for, as a thank you for attending. So that is also in the chat box. And I'll also send it and post it on DC Agile Meetup group.
Yeah. Well, and you can also, in that same contact thing, you could also drop any questions that haven't gotten answered in there, or you can contact me on LinkedIn, or I'm out there. I'm all over the place. I'm easy to find. So if you have additional questions, feel free to let me know. And Will, quickly, co-intelligence is the idea of team mastery. What do we as a team have mastery of? Not every individual. So there's a lot more about that in the Lead Without Blame book. So if you get a chance before you go, put another word in here about what you take away from the talk, or you can just have it in the chat. That's fine too. I will close this down. Oops. And thank you. Thank you for coming. Yeah, I knew that was a little risky to stop for questions third of the way through, but I really wanted to make sure that people got a chance to ask them. So
I like the interactiveness. So
yeah, thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
As Diana said, if you have questions, there was that contact link. We'll be posting the recording on the meetup group. And then reach out if you need anything from myself or Anna, and we'll be seeing everyone soon.
Thank you so much. I got a lot of notes, Diana, so I think I have a lot of follow-up, but I feel like this is really good. I loved it. Makes me want to join the workshop.
Thank you. Thank you.